Fati, what's been the hardest part about having a mental health condition?
I think my parents not understanding, like my family and my parents not getting it. They used to just think it was something made up in my head growing up. But now that it's slowly gotten into them seeing other family members and friends going through it, they've grown to understand.
And become more aware.
Yeah, so it's no longer like within, especially my mom and my dad, it's no longer a stigma. It's actually something that I'm living with, that they have to adapt to.
So I treat it as a you problem.
Completely. Completely.
That's a personal problem.
I got that dish. I got that. I got that dish. 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 I got that dish. I got that. Dish. That dish.
Hey, y'all. It's Onika.
And it's your girl, B.
And you are dishing with Dainty Dish. How you doing today, B?
Girl, I'm hanging in here. You have me doing work before work.
No, guy. We're refinishing a table, and I say we, and I mean her.
We is Chinese.
We is Chinese. I mean Bianca. She's refinishing the table, and I'm doing what I always do. I just oversee. That's what I do when she cooks on a Monday. I just oversee, see if everything's, going smoothly and well, I provided you with a T-shirt.
Thank you. And my pants got dirty.
Yeah, well, I mean, can't have it all. How was your weekend? Because it was a big weekend for you. Talk about it, girl.
Exciting. It was my baby girl's first birthday party.
Hey, TT. In the future.
In the future.
When you're listening to your auntie show and your mommy show.
Yes, it was exciting. I was exhausted, but it was a good party. It was a good turnout. Everyone came to celebrate, but
Yeah, it's good.
How was your, you were there, so other than that.
She made me games host. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence about kids. I don't know if I like them or dislike them. I don't, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about the little tiny terrorists, but
listen, they're the sweetest little terrorists you ever did meet.
The little tiny terrorists. They don't listen. They're sticky. They yell. They run around a lot. It's a lot of energy. And making me the games host was probably one of your better ideas because I can handle that level of energy for a couple of minutes. But I don't know. I had a fun time though. The food was good. I got a lot of leftovers. 1 week's worth of leftovers. No cooking for Onika this week. I'm very excited about that.
Ridiculous.
You hear someone laughing in the background. That's Fati. Fati, how you doing today? How you doing? How you doing?
Oh, that's not trademarked.
It's not.
Okay.
How you doing, girl?
How you doing, girl?
I'm okay. I had a really light work day today, so I'm doing okay.
See?
You had a light work day? You never have a light work day.
Exactly. That's how I'm here today.
Oh my gosh. So just FYI, guys, it's all kinds of crazy Wednesdays. You know what's up. You know what happens every second Wednesday of the month. We have someone on the show to tell their lived experience story with mental health, addiction, and homelessness issues. And Fati has graced us with her presence today. She's going to be talking about her mental health journey. We're going to have her on another episode talking about, well, you know what? None of your business. You'll find out when she comes on the episode.
I didn't even have to tell you.
Just tell me, girl. I'm learning. I'm teachable, guys. I'm teachable. I am teachable. But, Fati, so you said you had a light work week. What else happened this week?
I went to my goddaughter's party on the weekend.
Of course. That's what I was looking for. Did you have a good time?
I did.
Was the food good?
It was.
The thing is, nobody remembers a party if the food is bad.
They'll
remember it's bad. But if the food is good, everyone's happy.
Never bad over here.
No. Oy, oy.
Food is good.
We had Auntie Wendy's vegetable chicken.
That was so good.
Oh gosh, we had the vegetable rice. We had the fried chicken. Oh gosh,
I made good picks for the menu. I really did.
It was good. We didn't have Mom's macaroni pie, which I was surprised with. That one fell short this time.
Cause
what happened there?
We did so much.
Yeah, we did the most.
Yeah,
The kitchen can only handle so much chefs. There's 3 chefs in my parents' house: my mom, my dad, and my sister. And apparently now my niece.
Yeah.
She gets to the kitchen. I hate the kitchen. I've actually gotten blinds to cover my kitchen so I don't have to see it. Like,
Is that why they're there?
Y'all will see that on the Insta story when we go live. And I'll let you know when we go live, none of your business. So, Fati, I'm in a jokey mood today. I'm in a happy Monday.
I love it.
I'm in a jokey mood today. But Fati, let's talk. Let's talk about your story.
Sure.
So let's talk about the Wonder Years. Have you ever seen the Wonder Years? I always ask people this. Have you ever heard of the show The Wonder Years?
I actually haven't.
Thank God, one time.
Fred Savage, actor. Do you remember Boy Meets World?
Yes.
Yes.
Corey's big brother,
Okay.
his name is Fred Savage. Corey was Ben Savage. So his big brother was on a coming of age show which was our version of Boy Meets World, called The Wonder Years. And it was like pre-teen years, and there was a girl with long brown hair to her butt named Winnie that Fred Savage loved so much, and he'd narrate and talk about her and be romantic about her. Look it up on YouTube. Watch an episode.
Sounds like Corey and Topanga though.
it really does.
It was our generation's Corey and Topanga. So it was.
So it's Boy Meets World was a remake then.
It was a remake. Everything's a remake. Our generation. I'm an '80s baby. We did it best.
90s.
We did it best. I
mean,
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything. I'm just giving you a look.
I'm watching your kind of. But what were the Wonder Years like for you?
For the most part, because I'm an only child, I didn't really have, siblings to fight with. So I was basically by myself, for the most part, I would say. But my family, in terms of like my parents, was really disconnected. So when I refer to my mom and dad, I'm actually talking about my stepmom and my dad. But I don't call her step because she's been in my life since I was like 7. And my degree, I guess you could say, of separation within my parents was my mom not being around. So it was more like I tried to focus outside of my parents and being at home, and focus on like trying to make friends all the time. So I was always wanting to be outside, always wanting to do stuff, and being an only child, you don't have like a sibling to be doing all that type of stuff. So, but other than that, I was a happy-go-lucky kid with grandparents that fed me everything. So I was good. That's why I'm a foodie.
Sometimes, just like saying only child, sometimes, I do wonder how it would be like to be an only child.
I knew for 9 years. It was glorious.
So you've had best of both worlds.
Bianca came into my life at a time where I needed my mother the most, and I resented her for it for years. Like, we're just going to keep it real. The sibling rivalry was real. I tried to kill her with a pillow.
You tried to do what?
I tried to smother her with a pillow.
My baby
her
pillow.
baby
My
pillow.
favorite baby pillow.
She started crying, so I took the pillow off her face because my mom was gonna get me in
Statute
trouble.
of limitations is probably.
But I tried to murder her. Like anyone out there who's listening that's an older sibling has at least tried to murder their younger sibling at least once.
My child will do no such thing.
Okay, you just wait. You just wait. You just wait. Okay.
Listen, you see how you like to listen to all the murder mysteries.
We get fed up and we're like, I've had enough. I've had enough of this bullshit. Babysit my ass.
And you make the attempt. This ain't over, girl. This ain't over.
I'm gonna get you. Gotta get you one of these good days.
Terrible, my poor TT. Oh my God.
But the thing is, with you, it might be the youngest one trying to kill the oldest one.
This is true.
Your littlest one is a psychopath.
Yeah, she's a bit much. She's a little terrorist. Yeah.
She's a tiny little terrorist. Oh my gosh! So you were an only child. You had your grandparents. You had your parents.
I was lucky enough to have all 4 grandparents until the age of 19. So wow. I was, especially with my grandparents, because I was actually growing up closer to them than anything. So I always focused on being around them. So I lived with one set, so my biological mom's parents, for a lot of my life, and then I used to just see on a regular my dad's parents, and they were separated. So it was like one day I'm going here, one day I'm going here. Yeah.
And how does that affect you?
I guess I could say because I was I grew up in it, and it wasn't like they separated while I was alive, like they separated prior to that. It didn't really affect me too much. But with my parents, because they always tried to shelter me from what was really going on between the two of them, I always felt just to keep my mind and everything towards my grandparents, because I always saw them together, and they were always, you know, go here, take Ti-Ana, go there, take Ti-Ana. So I didn't, especially when my parents were fighting, they always used to be the people to come and grab me. So I would never be subjected to it unless it was a situation where it was like, when we were living all together, it was at night, and I could wake up and hear them because they were fighting so loud.
So they were like your stable foundation.
My grandparents, 100%. Until my grandfather died, like, they were two peas in a pod and always included me in everything growing up. So even prior to like the Wonder Years, they worked at, I don't know if you guys remember the St. Clair West Flea Market by Old Western Road in St. Clair.
I would not.
Okay. So it's in the West End. They're closed now. They took it down, but my grandparents used to have a booth there, and they used to sell video games. So every weekend they would try and take me either on both days or at least one. So I was always with two people that love each other and would bicker, and boom. But you know, when you start to grow up and you start to ask questions, that's when things start to get figured out, and you know. But I wouldn't say I had like a bad, horrible,
troubled
childhood.
I said troubled.
No, I was partly troubled, but I tried to hide it and not deal with it. I just
share with us.
Tried to block that stuff out, especially like,
I've heard a sprinkle. You don't want it.
I want it. I want all of it. Share, spill the tea, man.
Oh,
girl,
goodness.
spill that tea.
Okay, so
it's all. Listen, when you're on this show, you're all in, baby.
Okay,
you're all in. Spill the tea.
Well, I mean, wacky things. Okay, so I would say most of where I think the beginning underlying triggers came from my parents and how they, I guess, went about everything in regards to me. So I basically got caught in the middle up until I was about like 13. So my parents were together before they got married. I don't know why them get married, but got married when I was like 6.
How does anybody get married?
I mean, you know, but you see both sides, right? Just even in living society, like you've got people that have been together 79 years, and you've got people that have been together 6 months. That was my parents. They were married.
Kim Kardashian wedding?
Who? No. They had big wedding, and I said I want to be in the limbo. I meant limo, but I want to be in the limbo. I was a flower girl. I still have pictures like of all this stuff. So they got married, everything happened, whichever. But 6 months later, they separated. And that threw me through a loop because I never wanted to be with my mom. I wanted to be with my dad. And my dad was the one who left. Like, I'm an identical twin to my father. So, and growing up, this is where an underlying trigger comes in. I used to always want to have that mother-daughter relationship with my mom. But my mom used to say, go sit with your father. Go be with your father. Like, I could never really come curl up
with her.
No. There was great disconnect. I was his twin. So they would try to say, oh, you look like your mom. And I'd be like in my head, man, no way. Y'all see this, but I look like my father. Like, I know that. And then the ones that would say, oh, you look like your dad, that would start to get her. So I think that was her trigger.
Like, am I understanding that your mom had some resentments towards
100%.
you looking like your father?
I think so, that she would never admit to it. It was never something like I've asked her, but she's never said. She'll always say, no, that's not the case. It's towards him. But I always used to tell her, like, just be honest, because I know the truth. Don't hide yourself in the truth. I grew up to be able to accept that, because before I used to live in the denial, thinking there's no way my mom's going to resent me because I look like my dad. That's just my genes, right? Like, I'm still your daughter. I'm still your blood.
50%, 50-50.
Right. So from there, we lead into the back and forth. So court case and going through that type of system, having a therapist come see me once a week, and my name would be called to the principal's office. Like, they'd literally say, can you have Ti-Ana come down to the principal's office? And that was before they used to
see you in school?
Oh, 100%, because my mom took us through a court case. So my mom took my dad to court for child support. Even though my dad was seeing me regularly, giving my mom stuff, she went that way. And I remember I had always asked my dad, why do you think she went through this? And he said, I know. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said that one day going through it all, he asked her, why are you doing this? And she said, I know nothing I do to you will affect you directly. So I'm going to go the other way and hit the one thing you would fight for till the day you die. And that was me. So I got caught in the middle of this whole thing, right? So it was the, going to court, telling a judge that I didn't want to be with my dad, and hearing my mom, venting to my grandparents about how bad my stepmom was. That took me through a turmoil into my wonder years, because I had so much then resentment and hate for my stepmom that it just ricocheted completely through those years. I wasn't a horrible kid, but I had extreme bad moments.
Issues.
Yeah. That should never have happened. But I was seeking attention. Didn't understand it. But I was like, at the time I was like, I'm gonna steal this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna joyride this, I did everything.
So when did you connect with your father and your stepmom? Like, when did you finally move in with them or start living with them? Or was it in your teen years?
Yes. So it was on and off for a little bit. Going from like the end of 7th, 8th grade school, I ran away from home
Talk about that for a second.
So
this is a juice, guys. Okay, FYI, I had so much confidence in my friend Fatih that I didn't do a pre-interview. So I'm hearing this shit
and I know
the way you're hearing this shit.
Sprinkles. I know Sprinkles.
Bianca knows Sprinkles, so she does the pre-interview this time, and normally I do the pre-interview. So I'm like in shock right now. I'm sitting on tenterhooks.
Girl,
this is how I feel on a tenterhook.
This is cake batter right now.
When did you run away?
So I was in grade. Okay, so we'll start back from when I switched schools. So I switched from.
I'm wondering if you had like the stick with the little with the littlest hobo. You know what I mean? Because when you're a kid, you run away. You bring your one toy in the bag. You bring your one toy in the bag, get out of the block to try to catch the bus. I realize you don't have a bus fare and you have to turn back to go home. Like, was it one of those situations? No. It was serious?
No. Trust me, I'll get there. I promise.
Okay. I'm not rushing the process.
Grade 4, they came to us when I was going to a particular school that was down the road from the school I ended up at. They came around asking if we wanted to switch schools to do French immersion. And I was like, yeah, Mom, I want to do it. Je parle français. Da, 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 da. So I switched schools and started going to the French immersion school that was literally connected right down the street. And in grade 5, I ended up with a childhood best friend named Jessica. And her brother was like my ultimate. Like, that was my first love. I fell in love with him, everything.
It's always a friend sibling,
Man,
it's true.
I couldn't help myself. I'm sweet. So she said to me one day, she goes, you like my brother? And I'm like, no, I don't think I like your brother. She goes, so do you love him? And I'm like, whoa, chill out. Maybe we'll go at like, because you jumping gun. So it was basically, we were dating, and my mom literally could not stand him. They thought, oh, you're too young. And I'm like, it's grade school love. I was so, in grade 5, I was 10. Yeah. So that's when it started. Yeah, I mean, things happen. So it was my boyfriend from like grade 5 up until almost grade 8. In grade 7, me and my parents really had like this falling out about him. We don't like him. But I'm like, you guys don't know him. He's so sweet. That's my boyfriend. That's my boyfriend. No, you can't see him. You're grounded. It's just this whole thing.
I hate you.
Right? And then
slams door. Not to know what's Indian.
You understand? I could not slam door, but I
gave my mom a dirty look in the mirror one time, and she caught me. She just went out, slapped me in the head. Can't even give a dirty look in the mirror.
No. They see. I saw that. I didn't
saw that. I didn't
do anything.
I heard
you thought it in your head.
I heard that.
So, we also, well, not we, but My childhood best friend and I got into an argument, and my mom caught wind of it. I don't like that girl. Da-da-da-da. You're going to stop talking to both of them. I said, wow, like, we can't just have a fight and come back and we'll be fine? No, I don't want you to. So, okay. So she said, figure it out however you do it. Make sure and cut the whole friendship. So I said, I'm not going to see her. And you don't want me to talk to her, so I'll just call the house and leave a voicemail. So I called her house. Nobody answered the phone. Hi, Jessica. This is Ti-Ana. So my mom said, we can't be friends, and I'm really sorry, and tell your brother we have to break up. Click. She seen that I called and flew the coop the next morning. So I got up in the morning, and I'm telling you, it was licks from the time I opened my room door until going into the kitchen, and then I just couldn't take it. And unfortunately, say this on.
And for people out there that don't know what licks are, that's a beating. In Guyanese or Caribbean language, it's a beating.
Yeah, them licks were good, boy. But I couldn't allow it because
you couldn't brave the licks.
No, it wasn't that I couldn't brave the licks. I couldn't brave the fact that she came to me and said, why are you calling them? Like, why are you talking to them? I said, you asked me to do something. I did it in the way that would keep me as far apart from them as possible. So she couldn't handle it that I decided to do it that way. I told her, I said, nobody answered the phone. I just left a voicemail and that was the end of that. I'm not going to talk to her. But licks into the kitchen. And one time she licked me in my head and I couldn't take it. And my mother and I ended up in a fist fight that my grandfather had to separate. So he literally like turned me around, picked me up and said, go in your room, and then calm my mom down. And that day my dad was supposed to pick me up. And I said, I'm not going. Oh no, I think that was the next time. No, she didn't pick me up that day. Or sorry, he didn't pick me up that day. Was it? No, he didn't. I was calling to see if he could pick me up. He didn't. So I found a friend that I traveled on the bus with before to get to his house. And I said, hey, nobody's coming for me today, so can I come with you? I just don't have bus fare. She said, yeah, sure, no problem. Gave me the bus ticket. I didn't tell her. So I literally from school got out at 3:15. I think until about 8, 9 o'clock, they couldn't find me. Police called, everything. They're searching up and down the area, everything.
So you were going to your dad's house?
I was trying to get there. I said, I'm not living with her no more in my head. I'm going. I didn't tell nobody my plan. I said, I'm out. So I went to the bar that was at VP and St. Clair, and I called my boyfriend's house. And I said, I'm not going home. He's like, no, you got to go home. They're calling me thinking I took you. And I'm like, well, call them back and tell them I'm not coming home. And then the quarter, because when it was a quarter to use a payphone, it cut.
Them quarters used to last long, though.
What?
Back in the day.
That's to tell you how long I was on the phone for, that it cut. He's like, don't get off the phone. I'm going to call them. I said, no, don't call them. And if you call them, I'm hanging up the phone. And then it clicked. And I was like, great. And I was at a bar at my young age, instead of a bar after 9 o'clock. I could have got them in trouble. So the bartender, she was like, hey, hon, are you okay? I'm like, no, I kind of need police. Then she was like, what? I'm like, I ran away. She was like, oh my goodness. So they called the police searched me down, and then they brought me to my dad. And my dad, my stepmom, and my mom were in the same establishment, which was their house. Girl, My dad, I fell asleep because they said, go, sleep upstairs, whatever, in your room. And I could hear them bickering, but then I fell asleep. And then my dad woke me up and he's like, you got to go home with her. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, this is not, like, no. He's like, you have no choice. If you don't, she'll call the cops, blah, 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 blah. So I went home. And it was super awkward for at least a few days that I didn't know what to do with myself. And she was like, don't ever run away again. That was the whole start of everything. So I was back and forth through my teen years at my parents' house and like my dad and my stepmom. And then I was also at my grandparents' house. So my whole thing was when I got in trouble, I ran. So I ran from one house to the next.
Fight or flight mode.
Yep. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. Oh, I'm grounded. Phew. Oh, I'm grounded. Phew. To the point where I think it was just after my sweet 16, I had gotten in trouble and decided that I wasn't going to fly. I was going to drive. And I took my dad's Trailblazer and drove it on the 407 from Ajax all the way to my grandparents' house at Domino's in Eglinton. And that, ooh, I could have been charged. My uncle came down from Ottawa. He's like, you got to turn yourself in. I'm like, I'm not going back. Got to turn yourself in. So I turned myself in. They didn't charge me. I went back. So you were a runner. Oh, yeah, man. I used to, because to me, I was like, I'm an only child. Why am I getting in trouble? Not realizing that I'm the one getting myself in trouble. Life didn't have to be as complicated, but I made it that way thinking that I was doing myself a service when I was actually doing myself a disservice. Yeah. So it took me, I want to say, I think I really grasped everything when I was about 20. I had just gotten out of a relationship, just said no to an engagement, everything. Oh, yeah, I was engaged.
I tell you, the Danger Dish podcast can bring it out of you. Ask
Mama, I'm sorry. Mama, I'm sorry. What?
It brings it out of you.
I was engaged for about 6 months.
Jesus, take the wheel. Just take it. Take it because I want to see my babies again. Like, take it. What? We'll discuss this later. You could go into it if you'd like, but if you don't, we'll discuss this later. Continue. It's okay.
I mean, that's a quick story. Yeah, no I would. It really isn't, but I think I just turned 19, and somebody from high school.
Say less. I already know this story. Oh, I forgot about this. I already know the story. You can go though. Go ahead.
It was somebody from high school that I ended up being with, and honestly, we probably shouldn't have been together because we both had mental health issues. But we fought through it to stay together. I actually ended up meeting my best friend because of this relationship. Haley was my partner's best friend. And then
you a kid bad. How you just
like the family dog. Just
going around. Gotta go.
Gotta go.
So the engagement happened. My father was asked everything, and then it was like I had an epiphany, and I realized that it was the wrong relationship. Mm-hmm. We were fighting so much, and it just didn't make sense. And it wasn't like it was getting better; it was getting worse. Mm-hmm. So I cut it like 4 days before my birthday. Just said I can't do this.
Did you give the ring back?
I tried to. I was told no, and then I lost it.
Oh, that's
you didn't pawn it?
No.
Oh, I mean, you could have kept it, but.
So you're engaged, you're unengaged now, all such a whirlwind.
I'm single.
You're single and unencumbered.
That's perfect.
Single and unencumbered. So you're single, and what's going on with you? Like, what's going on with your mental health? What's going on, like, in your life at that point?
Actually, at that point, after the engagement got called off, I was actually in a really good space with myself. It took maybe I would say 6 months for me to really understand if I made the right decision. And that I think was just battling myself. Mm-hmm. And then I got into work mode, and I was just working and enjoying life and spending time with my best friend and going through all of that.
Mind you, let me just cut in. She's a workaholic, everybody, okay? Big time.
Yeah.
Always working. So she brings her back. I'm just saying,
well, look, I finished work early to come and do a show.
Thank God.
Mm-hmm. I finished work at 3:30, What are we ever going to do?
That's uncalled of. That's unheard of. 9-10 o'clock, she's calling me. She's still at work. So this is unheard of.
It's like, oh, hey, what are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? But yeah, so I would say those few years, I was just living life. Not living too, out there, but out enough that I was actually enjoying the years, my younger 20s. Because I always say, once you hit 25, then everything changes and you're thinking about the rest of your life. So I said, cool. I'm here, I'm there, I'm not home, I'm working. So it was all good. I hit a couple rough patches after a few jobs fell through. But then I was working really steady. I was at a place that used to be called Collect Corp, but they're like a debt collecting. But they had an outsourcing for Bank of America first party. So I was just basically calling people who owed on their credit card bill who hadn't paid it yet and trying to set them up on automatic transfers so they didn't have to worry. I did really well until they pissed me off and I said, okay, it's time. And then I got into oh man. Every time I think about this, I get upset, but only because I'm like, damn, really? I switched from them to Rogers. Rogers is a really good company to be with.
I've heard. I
had like 90/10 benefits. I was getting paid twice a week, almost $1,200. And I was only working Monday to Friday at that point. And they're like, once you're done training, you have all the overtime. Me, workaholic, would have been in there from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at least 5 days a week if I was able. But their training is very extensive that it takes like a month and a half to get through it. And then you're literally just doing the rest of your probation. And my birthday, August 15th, I'm a Leo, guys, if you must know. I wear a size 3X, I had my birthday. I spent it with my parents and my cousins and had a really good weekend out. I went Bayesian Invasion, Soca Fete. Man, I sweat out my skin and had stab me and fall over. Yeah, it was a good weekend. It was so good. I will never forget it because it was caught on tape and on pictures. I'll find them for you. It's really funny. But right after that weekend, so I had such a good weekend. And at this time, I was the girl at the time that I was good friends with. I was living with her because I was there so much. So, life was good. She actually had my first goddaughter, who I don't get to see because we're no longer friends, but I've seen pictures and she's beautiful. So shout out to Sasha if she ever actually listens to this, and shout out to Maya because you're beautiful. But we left on Monday, so I was supposed to work at like 12, and we left that day. Her mom had a surgery. I had to go to work, and she was dropping us. So instead of dropping us the night before, we said, we'll leave in the morning early, drop her to her appointment, drop me home, she could go home. We got on the highway, and just as we were heading down to go and drop her mom at Toronto Western, I got into a car accident.
Were you driving?
No, I was a passenger. So she was driving. The driver, it was like 6 a.m. in the morning. He fell asleep at the wheel and almost hit us. And we had seen the car coming into us. I can actually pinpoint and remember exactly what I was doing. I had my phone down and I was texting a friend of mine, KO. And I had just literally said LOL, and I heard her beep the horn, and I said, what happened? And she said, the driver. And I looked over, and his car was still coming. So she tried to swerve out of the middle lane to avoid it. I think she got frightened because there was another car on the left side of us. And we ended up spitting out as she tried to get control of the car to go back into the middle lane. So whenever we used to talk about it, we always remember spinning out, hitting the guardrail so hard, and like spinning once and stopping. But her mom was sitting in the back seat, and my goddaughter was there. She was fine out of all of us. She remembers us spinning, hitting the guardrail, and then spinning out twice and stopping. And she said when she looked at us, we both, while we were spinning, had moved our heads one way so violently, and both of us hit the windows. Yeah, so she thinks for like a real temporary second, we blacked out. And then when we stopped, I guess you could say, I would call it a trigger, is that I looked up because we were on the DVP and I saw my house. And from there, like, I was like, literally, she put the car in park. The guy stopped, and she saw red, so she blacked out and got out the car and like went to him. And I just remember her mom saying Ti-Ana, and I'm like putting my glasses. I put my glasses on. My phone was all over the place. I had to put it back together, and I said, "Yeah, I'm going." And I took off my seatbelt, and I had to go and restrain her because she was literally beating him up. We had to go to the hospital. We were all okay, but like, she had an existing knee injury. Her mom had just had rotator cuff surgery.
Oh my God.
The only thing at the time was I just had like a burn from the seatbelt because of how hard, and my wrists and knee were hurting because I braced myself thinking we were going to go through the guardrail. And I mean, the next day I was in a lot of pain. And then I think it was probably a week later, I got into a car and I couldn't breathe. Like, I held my breath. I could not breathe. I couldn't even, I passed out. And they were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. What's going on?" I had no recollection of like just knocking out. I thought I fell asleep. But they were like, "No, like you didn't seem awake, alive, nothing like that." So from that, they had to get me diagnosed, and that's when everything started to come into play, because I was...
Like, physically or mentally?
Mentally. I was never the same after that. I never really dealt with anxiety, but when they did, I can't remember what it was
Sorry,
called.
what year was the car accident?
2013.
Okay.
So it's been 7 years.
Okay.
It'll be 7 years, August 19th.
Okay.
So
Is that like a, after a car accident, is that like a standard thing to get like a mental health check after a serious car accident? Or was that something you initiated?
No. So what had happened was they took us to the hospital. They asked if we were okay that day. We went home, and then it actually came from doing the claim with the lawyers. They were like, "You need to go and get checked out," because physically, like, the only thing I really had was like my back was hurting a lot, and they had to do x-rays and stuff, and they found out that I have 2 bulging discs at the lower part of my back that were at the time seriously inflamed. But other than that, they were like, do you feel okay? And I'm like, "Yeah, I feel fine. I don't understand." And they asked, like, "How do you feel mentally?" And I said, "I'm cool." But they were all like, "No, man, something's wrong. Like, something doesn't make sense." I was hypersensitive. I was
crying all the time?
Oh, man. Mm-hmm. It was like I would huff and puff. I would huff and puff, and like, even getting into a car, I stopped and I would go, and they would be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, yeah. But I would, the same thing I'm doing with my hands, so you guys can't see, but I'm rubbing my hands, is the same motion I had before touching the handle.
Like a reaction almost, like a nervous tick, or like a memory happening to your body before you touch the wheel.
I've actually had that after that accident.
I had that after my accident as well.
It was that.
I basically I stopped driving after I got into a car accident. Basically, she had to drive me everywhere.
I can't stop driving. So.
Well, see, I wasn't driving at the time. I was literally, that month, my next paycheck, I was like, I'm going to go get my license. I'm going to go do everything. Even after the accident, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still going to go get my license." And they're like, "Don't get your license. Like, you need to pipe it down.
Like, you need time." Mm-hmm. So what did the psychiatrist, like what was that experience like, seeing a psychiatrist and talking about what had happened? Like, when did you realize, okay, I'm not okay?
I think it was actually the same thing we were doing right now, was I was talking about my life and things that had happened, and he picked up on certain triggers. He asked me about like my parents and what had happened with them, and the night they actually like separated, and how that affected me, and the fact that I can still vividly remember exactly what happened that night. They're like, "That's a trigger." Then they talked about, he asked me to sit down and imagine I was in a car, and started talking to me about certain scenarios that would happen. And I didn't even take it in, but he said that I lifted my knee and braced my arm when he talked about a car like suddenly stopping in front of me. I was in like a hypnosis type. Yeah, it was really interesting. Like, I don't think I was hypnotized, but it was just a simple fact that like
It was like, it's like almost like guided meditation,
Yeah.
but for like to trigger you, to find what your triggers are.
Yeah.
So it's not a hypnosis exactly. They do it in cognitive behavioral therapy as well.
That's
So
what it was.
CBT. Yeah, it was CBT, not DBT, not dialectical behavioral therapy.
No, it was
Cognitive
cognitive.
behavioral.
I think I
Yeah.
need to do this.
Yeah, it's amazing.
No,
it's really helped me.
It honestly, it helped me to figure out what was going on in my head because I was seeing it happening, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is just all in my head, and I'm not taking it in as I should. And it was that one, and then it was when he was asking me about, he said something to me that literally made me anxious. Like, it was like, what do you do if you go to like touch the handle of something? What do you do if somebody says certain things this way or whichever? Because initially they said that I had, he called it temperamental anxiety. So when something happens and I have no control, I get upset very easily and I storm, and like because I told him, I said my chest closes and I can't not have my brain go through all the scenarios. I don't care if I'm talking to myself. I don't care if it's in my head. It's coming out. And that would then have me hysterical cry. And I couldn't figure out the crying thing. And I was like, why am I crying? That would then trigger me and make me upset, because my mom always used to say, like, what are you crying for? Like, I'll give you something to cry for. So
Oh, yeah.
the Caribbean thing,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my God.
So it
Oi,
was... So there was that, and then he talked about the reason, because he's like, do you like to argue? And I said, no, I don't really. Nobody wants to argue. He's like, but what do you do when you do argue? Are you passionate to the point where it gets you to anxiety, or do you just kind of raise your voice? And I said, sometimes I'm passionate. Like, it's probably something I like or whatever.
Everybody passionate when they argue?
Not all the time.
It
Somebody
depends
just
if it
argue
gets you to
argue.
anxiety. Some people argue to argue because they like to hear the sound of their own voice.
Yes.
Some people argue in a passive way where it's like, okay, fine, you win. But some people, and I'm one of those people where when I have argument with like certain people, if you know what I'm saying, not you.
Yes.
You know who I'm thinking of.
Okay, probably.
Like, yeah. So when I have an argument with that person, for instance, like I get super defensive. I could feel like your whole body changes. The whole,
Okay.
like your whole mood.
Sweaty.
You're sweaty.
Yep.
Chills,
You shake.
everything.
You have
Yeah.
shakes.
The adrenaline
Like
shakes.
the adrenaline, your chest tightens up
Yep.
because they're making you so anxious by their combativeness and what they're saying to you. Or if you can't rebut against what they're saying to you, you get defensive, and like that's
Y'all know who that is.
when you get in. You know how mom used to say to us, don't get into to me specifically, don't get into a passion.
She always gets into a passion.
I get it from her. So she's like, don't get into a passion, Onika, right?
Yeah.
So I was in a passion with her just on the phone this afternoon. I'll tell you about it after the show. So I get into a passion. It affects my whole body, right? So I know exactly what you're talking about,
Yeah.
Fati.
So they initially didn't want to say it was PTSD, but it was because of that whole stopping. And then he went into talking to me about like what my day-to-day looked like. And at one point, this was during the accident claim and all of that stuff, I got depressed. I was super depressed. I couldn't work. I wasn't allowed to. I wanted to go to school, couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. So I just used to literally either be sleeping all day, lock myself in my room when I was living with her. Like, it was just really bad. And it was to the point where I felt like I was not doing what I wanted to do, which was work, or I had to be secretive about what I was doing because I didn't know if somebody was like, they put such things in your head during this accident.
Yeah,
it was really bad.
Yeah.
It got to a point where I was suicidal, and I didn't know how to separate that feeling or how to tell anybody because I thought it was just in my head and it didn't really matter. But it was, I believe it was December 2013 is when they fully said that I have anxiety, depression, and slight PTSD. And that over time I would get over the PTSD part, but it would never fully go away. It would always be something subconscious, which I even see if I don't feel I'm in control of my driving. So I drive now, big time road runner.
Big time.
Foot is hot. Foot is hot.
Don't stop at all.
Foot bottom is hot.
Yeah.
A hot stepper, hot pepper.
I have
Here
a
comes
heavy,
the hot stepper from the lyrical gangster.
guys are beating
Excuse
me
me,
up
Mr.
here.
Officer. Still love you like
We
that.
never get to get into the songs.
When we get into it, girl, that was a good. That was a good, that was a
appreciate
good
you. I
collabo.
appreciate you.
Simpatico right there. Simpatico.
It's a vibe. It's a whole vibe
It's a
over
whole
here.
vibe. It's a
100%,
whole
100%.
vibe.
It's a whole vibe.
It's a whole vibe. You have to catch the vibe. No, but so you were saying they diagnosed you with depression, anxiety, slight PTSD, and they were saying it won't completely ever go away.
No. So they said that once I get past it consciously, it'll always be in my
In your
subconscious. Yes.
So you could have dreams potentially about
Yes.
it and things of that nature.
Oh yeah, those dreams were so vivid. I used to have dreams where I'd be standing on the train tracks and I'd put my hand up, like it was always the hand motion. And I remember one time I was literally talking to someone, and I slept over at his house, and I said, no, wait, stop, in my sleep, and I put my hand up, and he didn't understand because I actually put it against his chest. And he was sleeping, but he was a light sleeper, so he heard the whole thing, and I was crying in my sleep. And he was like, what just happened? And I'm like, I'm gonna go home. So I used to run from it
I'm
right
not
quick.
talking about this with you, stranger.
I'm a head out.
Yeah, I'm head out.
Like,
I'm
yeah,
a dip.
I gotta go. Uber,
go.
taxi, taxi. It's like, I'll drop you home. No.
No
Need
need for the awkward silence.
We're not gonna talk about this.
Yeah, no need for the awkward silence.
It's funny because he's actually like one of my good friends now, and I finally told him
What that was all about.
what it was all about, and
It's
he's
good, 'cause he
like,
must have thought that he was like being rapey or something.
he literally thought, he's like, did I do something while we were sleeping? And I'm like, no. So what was that years ago? I was like, oh man. So I told him, and he was like, why didn't you just tell me? I said, at the time you were a semi-stranger, not really stranger, so I said I wasn't going to talk about it. Boom. So I didn't, and then when I finally told him, he's like, you could have told me, that's fine. So there was that. But yeah, I would say with the PTSD, it only happens at slight points when like cars stop suddenly. That's when it happens to me. It's like I could feel my foot want to hit the brake, and I can't, unless I absolutely, like my parents, I could have drive me, I could have drive me, but I can't have just, like being in Ubers, I would take them because girl, I used to run late all the time for work. But being in that still sometimes,
triggering.
oh man. And especially now because I drive, if I have to take an Uber, I gotta be focused on something. I can't just
Looking
not.
out the window.
Yeah.
Pay attention around you.
I can't, because one minute I'm looking at his speedometer, the next minute I'm like, why are you letting this man cut you off? This is gonna be a side swipe.
Driver?
Final destination in my head.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
no, that's
like
crazy.
that was a big thing from like the accident. Every time I got into a car too, I would have like Final Destination.
Oh,
thoughts.
the end of it.
Yeah. Like I would just think all the time about what is going to happen around me.
I remember that movie. It's been a while since I've seen that. It's one of the only scary movies I've ever seen. Really.
Yeah, like that. I used to do it on the train too. I would literally think of multiple ways I could die.
On a train.
On a train, in a car, walking. It was always
How are you
replaying.
with planes?
You know what? It's so funny. I'm not that bad. I love plane rides. I just can't stand the turbulence because of my belly.
Oh God, I hate planes. I hate planes. I'm taking a bus to New York in a couple of weeks, a 14-hour bus ride, so I don't have to take the 45-minute plane ride.
I've done that before.
I can't stand it. I get freaked out. I don't understand how planes work. There's always a crying baby. Everyone's breathing all the oxygen.
I
Like,
cannot
it's too
with
much.
you. Like,
No, that's
So
not.
much.
I
It's
can
like,
understand
it's like
that.
100,000 tons. Like, how does that stay in the air? I'm not a science mind. I'm an arts mind. I don't understand the physics of it.
you're like
Yeah.
if a man with some wings can't fly, how does a plane?
Yeah, I
was
never.
playing.
I
If
never
pigs can't fly, what are we
understand-
gonna do?
Yeah, like I've never understand like when the train leaves at Albuquerque at 2:00 and it takes 15 minutes between stops.
How do they
How
meet?
did
How
they get
did
to
they get
Kentucky? Like, I'm not that person. I don't understand the physics, so I stay the hell away from them.
I feel you.
Yeah, but okay. So you've been diagnosed. What is your next move? What do you do? Do you continue with CBT?
No, I actually haven't in a lot of years, to be honest. I think that's mostly because I feel like I have a handle on it. So with the PTSD, I know when it's triggered, and I usually just have like a breathing technique. Even while I'm driving, a lot of people don't. It's like even being in my car, they don't notice, just because I've gotten so good at concealing
doing
it.
it,
Yeah. With my depression, I think right now seasonal depression. So winters are really hard
Seasonal
for me.
affective disorder.
Yeah, like
I have that.
winters. Oh
Are
man.
terrible.
But this winter has probably been the best
Because
one.
it hasn't been
It
super
hasn't
snowy,
been-
super
no,
dark.
It's been so
I
good
didn't
to
I
me.
didn't feel seasonal affective disorder at all this year.
No, I was
Not
like,
even a little.
it's
barely.
a beautiful morning. I'm getting
like,
up.
barely.
I was good. My anxiety, I think, out of all three, is the worst.
Do you take any meds for it, or are you
No,
just? Okay.
I don't.
That's what doctors always do. They're like, "Do you want pills or do you want to talk?" Like,
Yeah, like, and before the pills they used to give me, because I was having sleeping issues as well, used to knock me out. Like, they were like horse pills. They weren't the size of them, but they were like tranquilizers.
I take tranquilizers, take pills to go
Girl,
to sleep. To the point where I can
couldn't.
wake up and my body's not awake.
Yeah,
And
no.
my eyes are awake, but my legs are paralyzed.
That is
Yeah.
literally what I was feeling, and I couldn't stand the feeling, so I stopped them. With my anxiety, it actually has not been as bad as it was. Even from like last year, this time, it's not as bad. I don't really have as many panic attacks as I used to, because I used to have like panic attacks probably, I would say, twice a week before.
What?
Yeah. I used
Like
to
when
have
you were
that.
in a car or just in general?
No, just in general. So
Like at first thing in the morning when you wake up after a nightmare?
no,
or like just, what would
it
trigger
would
your
just
panic attack?
it just depends on what it was. Like they told me that the trigger point was the accident to release everything happening, but that my anxiety doesn't just stick to one thing.
It doesn't stem from that. It stems from childhood.
It stems from childhood. So I get really, I'm very short tempered, and because my temper is so short, my anxiety kind of plays into it the same way. So you I don't know if it's I'm actually angry or if it's now.
It's a reaction to your anxiety. Or if
Yeah.
you're emotionally angry,
Wow.
or if you're mentally just anxious,
Correct.
and your reaction to your anxiety, like my reaction to my
anger.
anxiety is having a panic attack or feeling emotionally kind of like I want to cry or like
Yes.
yeah. But when I don't get anger is not an emotion I subscribe to personally, which is unhealthy in itself because I don't get angry.
Right.
I'd rather not have conflict than ever because I have my father's temper. Like when I get angry,
That's it.
one time in New York, I blew up at this girl. Like
I took the whole train. I took the whole bus ride back home by myself.
By herself.
With a stranger.
Because she couldn't take me anymore. I was having a manic episode, and I literally snapped in her face, screamed in her face. I don't usually in my bipolar get angry bursts, but I do. I actually do because there are times when I yell at dad or yell at mom or whatever when I'm manic, right? So I know my temper is a hot pepper, like it's
Right.
muy caliente. So I suppress it a lot. So that's not how my emotions come out. They come out with like sadness, depression. The anxiety is more panic attacks, like,
Right.
but yours seems to manifest in anger.
Yeah. Mine is definitely, there's an actual word that I read in an article for it, and I can't remember what it is, but it's like something anxiety, and it was on Facebook because one of my god sisters suffers from the same thing.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, this explains everything, guys. And I was just like, oh my god. But yeah, it definitely, and you know what, sometimes even for myself now, as much as I can recognize when it is, sometimes I don't. Like, I've blocked out from knowing, okay, this is what is going on. So there are times when it really is my anxiety, but it's so bad that I don't know what to do. So I just live in it and just kind of deal with it at the time.
You know what our favorite girl says? I can't even remember her name right now. The black lady that has bipolar that was in Tyler Perry show.
Oh, I can't remember her. I can't remember her name.
Like,
Gloria something or something like that. She was Auntie Gloria on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she go, what was the quote that I said?
If you sit in your shit long enough,
stop smelling.
stop smelling.
Get out of that.
Get out of that.
If you sit in shit long enough.
So it's been 7 years since the accident. How many years since the diagnosis?
6.5.
6.5. And how are you doing today with everything?
Honestly, I would say I'm better than I was because even throughout the 7 years trying to understand what it was, I just didn't. My parents, even before, I remember when the accident first happened and they diagnosed me, they're like, yeah, it's all in your head, girl. Like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I forgot to completely ask. What was your West Indian parents' reaction?
Did
they try to pray the cray away?
They didn't try to pray the cray away, but
they're
they
like,
just
we're not
said,
praying people. That's the other family.
They just basically said to me, like, you know,
put some lipstick on and bake a cake. You'll be fine.
Like, find something to do.
I had someone tell me that.
Literally,
put some lipstick on, bake a cake. You'll be fine.
It wasn't really that they not accept. I wouldn't say they accepted it, but it was more just like they lived with it. They were, you know, coexisting with whatever it was. But it really came to light when more family members started going through this and getting diagnosed, and other friends were getting diagnosed. And then my dad actually told me, like, he researched it and could see what was going on, and
signs and symptoms.
Yeah, and he was like, honestly, like, it was funny because we were having a discussion about it, and he said, I'm sorry. And I said, well, for what? Because I was so confused. And he's like, I'm sorry for dismissing this when this is something that I should have talked about with you and I should have understood more. That's nice. I might cry, guys, because like it makes me so.
I hope my dad gets there one day.
Yeah, like it took them a long time because, you know, especially within the Black community, it's a stigma.
It's a lot stigmatized.
It's very stigmatized, and it was always. And I take it back to, you know, before I was born, when they were growing up. What was it? Pray the cray away.
Pray the cray away.
You know, it was go find a hobby, find something to do.
Go find something to do. There's exorcism they needed to try to do, and there's spirits you could take, and a shaman you can go to, and an old bear woman, and
go see the African down the street. They have something for you. Like,
go see the witch lady. Like,
so
they'll put some herbs and spices. Let you drink some herbs, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, drink a tea.
Drink this
go
tea.
To bed.
It's just gas.
Put some Robitussin on it. It's just gas.
It's just gas. It's just gas.
It's just gas. It's just gas. You're fine.
It's like there's gas in my throat and my chest. Yeah.
My elbow hurts.
Brain. There's gas in your brain. For our grandma Elaine, everything was gas.
Everything was gas.
Every pain in your body. You have a pain in your pinky toe. That one would say, drink some hot water. It's gas. Drink some tea. It's gas. Grandma, my pinky's hurting.
But the joke is, after you drink that tea,
it was gas. It was actually gas. Like, no word of a lie.
Mom used to say, gas sticks you anywhere.
It sticks you anywhere, guys. That's a lesson today that I hope you learn.
Come on, drink some ginger tea. Little honey.
So at the top of the hour, I asked you what was the biggest challenge about your mental health, and you said your parents. But what have you learned? What have you learned over the years about yourself having these conditions?
I would say I've learned that I need to accept it versus trying to fight it. That was probably like my biggest thing. You have to accept it to understand how to cope with it, how to overcome it, and how to be able to help somebody else and pay it forward. That was like my
You're
biggest
doing that
thing.
right now.
Really?
You're paying it forward
on a
right now on this
national
show.
scale.
On a
International.
national scale. Someone in Croatia is listening to this right now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have Instagram. I've got it
we
all.
gonna get to
don't
that.
worry. We'll get to that.
I'll
Don't
tell
rush
you,
it. Don't rush the process.
No. I'm not rushing the process. All I'm saying is, if you need to, when they do slip that in, holla at your girl. I learned a couple of
Fati's
things.
going to be a regular guest on this show, just because I like this vibe right now. It's like so live. Like anytime Fati's off work, she's coming on the show as the third commentator.
Peeling down.
Like we're about to do another one actually, so you're going to be on that one too.
That's fine.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Sometimes we double tape, guys. That's how we do it. The Dainty Dish podcast, but not tonight because Bianca's got to spray paint a table.
yeah.
So you said acceptance is
Yes.
key. So that's what you've learned. And who is Fati today? Who are you today in your mental health?
I would say I am someone who learned to understand herself.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. I would also say accountability for myself.
Self-responsibility. I learned that at work today.
Listen, you have to be able to account for the things that happen, because if you don't know how to deal with it. You don't know how to deal with it the next time it happens. And you don't know how to, I would say, fully process what's happening. Because if you don't accept it,
It'll just be in an
right?
endless loop.
And it's like a chain, right? So it happens, you accept it, you learn from it, and you
your action,
you figure out how to do it the next time. So the next time, instead of it being like a longer, lengthy process to get to that point, you'll understand what the trigger was and be able to work from it.
It's so weird you said that, because I'm doing a class. I don't often talk about work just because I'm not allowed. But I'm doing this class called Pathways to Recovery. And there's a poem in one of the pages today talking about a woman who walked past a sinkhole and walked into it. And it took her a long time to get out of it. Then the next day she walked past the same sinkhole, and she blamed the sinkhole. She's like, it's the sinkhole's fault that I fell in the sinkhole. Even though she saw the sinkhole, she fell in the sinkhole. So then the next day she goes back again, falls in the sinkhole, blames the sinkhole again. But then the third day she gets some kind of self-awareness. She falls in the sinkhole, but it takes her less time when she was walking down the street to get out of the sinkhole. By the fourth time, she bypassed the sinkhole and went down another street. Yeah, it's like this cool poem that I read today.
Oh, wow.
That's what it is. I understand what you're saying, because I've been there. We've all kind of been there where we're stuck in a situation, right? And we don't accept where we are, and we're not taking, our soul or self responsibility and accountability for our actions, and therefore we're sitting in our mess, and we don't know how to change it because we're not being accountable for what we've done and the things that we've done to contribute to this mess. We're pointing the finger, and the whole cheesy saying when you're pointing one finger out there, two are pointing back at you. That's the truth. That's real, because it's, I don't know, whatever. I don't point fingers. I don't point fingers anymore. So
Well, you got your 3 pointing downwards.
I don't point fingers.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it was a really interesting poem, and it was a really great way to look at things, where you're just blaming everyone else outside of yourself, and you're not looking internally to see what the problem is with you. And once you're aware, it's like they say, like, acceptance is, or saying you're aware of something, is the first step in the battle to recovery and to recovering from that issue. Yeah. So, did you have anything else to add?
No, I think I'm okay. Anybody got a question?
Yeah. Do you have any questions, B? That was a very thorough story.
Oh, no worries. I got more.
It was my head top. The information that I retrieved, the tea that has to be spilled after this podcast is done.
Oh, Lord.
But doesn't really have to be spilled because I know some of the tea.
Okay. If you don't have anything to ask, if you have anything to add, I would like to shout out before you give your shout outs, Fati, to whoever you want to give your shout outs to in a minute. Okay. I would like to shout out Melissa HS Melissa. I'm not going to give your full name. She emailed us recently. Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for your email. And the subject line was inspiration and motivational. Hi, Onika. It was directed to me. I mean, it's my show. It's everybody's show, but it's my show. It's the Dainty Dish podcast. So it was directed
My
to
last
me.
name is not Dainty.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
God.
Dainty Crime. Yeah, so she said, hi, I currently work for Bell Canada for over 25 years. I have dealt with my manic bipolar illness. As I listened to your podcast, I am so inspired, and you lifted my spirits as I listened to your story. When I listened to your story, it spoke worlds to me as I experienced a sexual assault in my teens while on vacation and was hospitalized when I returned home. I have a very supportive family and a close-knit of friends that I can count on. I too call my father some early mornings to pray and read scriptures from the Bible. Thank you for your public speaking and how you're educating society on stigma and mental health issues. I will definitely be going to the library to look forward to reading some of your material from you. You're truly an inspiration and a motivation to me. Melissa, oh my gosh, girl, thank you. Don't worry, you'll be getting a private email from me sometime this week. I'm just hella busy, but I want to send a private email to you because I want to ask you a question about your situation. So look out for that, Melissa, if you're listening. I'm sure you are, because you do. So thank you. That was some fan mail. So if you want to send more fan mail, Bianca will tell you where you can send it to. And if you have any questions or concerns or issues or blah, 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 blah. Anything you think of that we should know, any topics you might want us to cover. Before Bianca gets to that info, I'd like to pass it over to Fati to say who you want to give a shout out to and give us your social media handles.
Okay. So I'm going to tell my sister to listen to this. So shout out to Nikita. Kita. I would say, like, I don't know if my parents, I'll be like, guys, you should listen to this. I'm on a podcast. But if they do, shout out to my parents. My parents have been like such a support for me, even though, like, you know, in the beginning it was hard. They came around to understand how to support me, especially when I have, you know, panic attacks and when I'm going through sadness. I think my dad checks up on me the most. It's so crazy sometimes.
I know
like,
your dad's gonna listen.
Right? I'll be like, Dad, you might want to listen to this. He'll be like, okay.
Antennas up. What do I listen to?
My grandma won't, but I'm going to say, like, you should listen to this one part because I'm going to say shout out to Grams, you know. Both of them, Evelyn, Miss Monica. I'll go get in trouble. I'll tell you after. That's some deep. Social media handles. So my Instagram is... Spell it if it's complicated. Yeah. No, it's not that complicated, but I would spell it anyways because... Yeah, they might think there's a 4 in there somewhere. So Instagram is __ MSTEE, so Miss T. If anybody who likes having their nails done wants to look at, you know, a nail page.
Beautiful monstrosities that she has.
She's got some claws, guys.
God.
She's safe in the ghetto. Trust me.
Everybody
She's safe in my hood.
These beautiful things.
She's safe in my hood. She's got some claws.
You want to kiss it?
Oh, Fati, can you open my can of Sangria Pellegrino for me?
Oh, we're gonna do some ASMR?
No,
come,
I'm joking.
we can do it right now.
I'm joking. I just mean your nails are long, so you can do it better than me.
Oh, girl, I think I have a can. Do I have a can?
Oh my gosh,
we're not doing SMAR on this show.
Okay, but
ever.
just know, my nails are long, but I could open things and I could pick up things off the floor
and type.
I type like 50 words a minute.
So what's the nails Instagram?
I think it's, oh my God, I love your nails. OMGILOVEYOURNAILS.
It's also
it's on my page.
It's gonna be on. It's gonna be on below the description. In the description, we'll have Fati's information for you to contact her.
And there's a Twitter, which I think is also _ MSTEE. But since it'll be in the description, because I really don't remember, you guys can find me there.
The right one. Don't worry.
We'll get the right one. You'll be able to get to you.
Yes.
All right, B.
It's my segment.
It's up to you.
It's my time.
Don't mess it up. No pressure.
Who says that before someone does something?
Don't screw it up.
I've completely drawn the blank.
No pressure. Don't screw it up.
So if you guys would like to get in contact with us, you can reach us at dysh at daitydysh.com. So that's DYSH at DAINTYDYSH.com. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts,
Give us a 5, deserve 5.
and if you're listening to us on any other platforms, thank you for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to get a hold of us on our social media, mine is That Mother Bad. That is ThatMuvabadxo. And if you want to get a hold of Onika's, hers is
Best of Onika, that's BESTOFONIKA.
And if you want to get a hold of both of us together, you can also go to our new Instagram for our podcast, which is Dainty Dish Podcast. That's DAINTYDYSHPODCAST.
Should have been a spelling bee champion.
I should have been. I'm telling you,
Should have
every
been a spelling bee
time.
champion.
Every time.
I went
You
to one
hit it.
spelling bee myself.
That was tight.
I didn't get very far. Hush lip.
I won my spelling bee when I was a kid. That was tight. That was
Show
tight.
off.
I am a show off. Anyways, thank you so much, Fati, for being on the show. I'm looking
Thank you, love.
forward to you being on the show again very, very soon.
Absolutely.
We already have our topic. That is none of your business.
Mind your funky business. Leave
Mind
it
your
alone.
Did you wait? Did you say funky?
I said
Funky
Okay.
business.
Okay. I just
We
have
try
to make
not
sure.
to swear on the show because my mom's listening. So
Hey, mom.
and she tells me that the church folk can't listen to my show because
Oh,
I
dear.
swear.
Did you not
Her
hear my
church
laugh?
folk.
So like, Mom, I'm so sorry.
Sorry. So she's like, brrr. Anyways, okay, that's it. This has been a great show. This has been probably one of my favorite sessions that I've had in the last 2 years, Fati. Thank you so
Hey,
much.
maybe my Monday next week might be a little bit.
You better
know?
make it free.
You better make it free. I
Well,
appreciate you.
damn. Okay, I'm gonna try to come for 6:30.
I appreciate you, Fati.
No worries. I appreciate you guys too.
All right. That has been the dish of the day, and I hope y'all have yourselves a very, very, very happy hump day.